welcome to my views on news. Another video for you. Firstly, Tigray, Ethiopia peace talks due to be held in South Africa has suffered a serious setback. Uhuru Kenyatta, former Kenyan President, one of the panelists to lead the talks in South Africa, has raised some questions. He has issued a written statement, which is a letter from Uhuru Kenyatta to African Union. Tigray also raised some questions 2 days ago, but Tigray's questions went unanswered. African Union did not address Tigray's concerns. Now Uhuru Kenyatta is raising questions. What did he say? Secondly, while the future of talks is uncertain, Ethiopian government has intensified air campaign on Tigray on 4 main towns of Tigray. Airstrikes were conducted in the last 24 hours. We have details for you. And last, with Djibouti, where attack on a military camp is being reported, which happened on Thursday close to Ethiopia-Djibouti border. Which group is involved in this attack? Some group from Ethiopia or from Djibouti? Some casualties are also being reported. We know that in Djibouti, a Far East conflict has been going on for years, for decades rather, like we're seeing in Ethiopia. Firstly, viewers, this weekend, on Saturday, tomorrow, talks were due to be held between Tigray and Tigray regional government and Ethiopian federal government representatives in South Africa. Some viewers say, Sajid, don't call this group Tigray regional government. Well, for me, this is a regional government. Why? Because election was held in Tigray before the start of November 2020 war. Debretsion was elected as the president. Yes, you can raise questions about the election process, but election was held, though it was rejected by Ethiopian federal government. African Union extended an invitation to Tigray regional government and Ethiopian federal government for talks in South Africa. Both parties agreed. Tigray raised some questions. Tigray's questions were not answered by African Union. African Union did not consult Tigray regional government and Uhuru Kenyatta before the announcement of the schedule of talks. Tigray in a statement clearly said that it was not consulted about the venue and about other modalities involving these talks. But Tigray did not reject the invitation, though it raised some concerns like the involvement of international clarity regarding involvement of international mediators and cessation of hostilities. Was it a part of agenda or not? And some other issues. Tigray raised some questions. Questions went unanswered. Now, Uhuru Kenyatta, Kenyan President, has written a letter to African Union. Uhuru Kenyatta has raised some questions as well. He was not consulted before African Union finalized the date, the venue of these talks. It's very surprising, viewers. African Union nominated 3 persons to lead the talks. Obasanjo. Secondly, Fumzile Milambo, former Deputy President of South Africa. Thirdly, Uhuru Kenyatta. And African Union did not care to consult Uhuru Kenyatta. Uhuru Kenyatta says that he is unable to attend the talks because of his busy schedule, because he has some other engagements as well. He was not consulted in advance before African Union announced the date and venue. Secondly, important thing is that he is also talking about cessation of hostilities, immediate end to the fighting, which is not on the agenda of African Union, it seems. African Union says that talks will focus on negotiated ceasefire, which will take time, maybe weeks, if not months. Tigray has been demanding immediate stopping of war. Kenyatta is saying the same, that is cessation of hostilities part of the agenda or not, which should be the first priority of this peace process. And thirdly, he talked about rules of engagement. He is requesting clarity about structure and modalities of the talks and rules of engagement regarding interlocutors. Who are interlocutors? EU, US, UN, what is their role? So almost similar questions have been raised by Tigray regional government and Uhuru Kenyatta, former president of Kenya. He has apologized, Kenyatta, that he cannot attend the talks on Saturday. So it means a new date will be announced. Kenyatta is not withdrawing from the talks. He says that on Saturday he is not able to attend the talks. But if new date is finalized, then he should be given clarity about modalities, about structure of talks, about involvement of interlocutors, about agenda of talks. Is it just about ceasefire or immediate cessation of hostilities? So Tigray regional government and Kenyatta seem to be on one side. They were not consulted before the announcement by African Union. African Union is being led by Obasanjo and Musa Faki, and Ethiopian government is on board. Once again, African Union's credibility and impartiality is in question. It should have contacted all the parties before finalizing a date and venue as well. So I am not very optimistic about this peace process after today's statement by Kenyatta. Now, obviously, in coming hours, African Union's Musa Faki will release a statement. Let's see what he says. Will there be some new date finalized? That remains to be seen. While talks are being delayed, while Kenyatta, Tigray regional government have questioned the method, the modalities adopted by African Union for the talks, Ethiopian government has intensified air campaign and 4 places in Tigray have been hit in the past 24 hours. Not being reported by the regional government. Why? Because most of the targets were training centers and other places being used by Tigray forces. 4 places hit. Firstly, Wakro, where reportedly a place being used by Tigray Defense Force as a recruitment area has been hit in an airstrike around 24 hours ago. Secondly, Zana, Medabe Zana, where a drone strike was carried out a few days ago in which a WFP truck also suffered minor damage. In Zana, there was an airstrike. Thirdly, Agbe in central Tigray, close to Abe Adi, airstrike was conducted. Fourthly, Dangelo at eastern Tigray, where you remember a massacre of civilians was committed, I think in the first phase of this conflict. So, Dangalot, Zana, Wakro, Agbe were bombed in the last 24 hours and some other places as well. So, before the start of talks, Ethiopian federal government, Eritrean government, they are trying to gain as much military leverage as possible by intensifying airstrikes, drone strikes, and by stepping up the ground offensives as well. Rumors are being spread about Shire, Axom, Adegarat. I'll update you once I have reliable information about major losses or gains. I reported about Edi Aviala and Edi Hagre, which I was able to confirm keeping in view my limitations, so far I have no confirmation about Aksum Sharif. So we can sum up viewers that coming days before talks, if talks happen, are very crucial because talks have been delayed and we don't know when talks will start. Before that, Ethiopian and Eritrean governments will try their best to step up the ground offensive to take control of some major places in Tigray. Thirdly was Djibouti, where attack on a military camp is being reported close to Djibouti Ethiopia border in Balho, name of an area there. Grabati San is in Djibouti, close to Djibouti Ethiopia border, where a military camp of Djibouti's forces, Djibouti's army was attacked by some attackers and 7 people were injured, 7 soldiers were injured, some say some casualties as well, though no confirmation, no statement I have seen from the government so far. We are hearing the name of a group called FRUD, which is Front for Restoration of Unity and Democracy. Djibouti-based group which fought in Djibouti's civil war in 1990s. Then it split into 2 factions, armed faction and political party. Later, armed faction laid down arms as well. So we're not sure about rebirth of FRUD in Djibouti. Some groups from Ethiopia have also been accused of being involved in attacks in Djibouti. Afar groups. FRUD was also the group led by Afars. Afar Isas fought in Djibouti's civil war. They fought against each other in 1990s. 3-year-long civil war came to an end in 1994. So, conflict between Afars and Isas in Djibouti is still there, like in between Afar and Somali regions. But in Ethiopia, the conflict is mainly in border areas. In Djibouti, there is power struggle between Afars and Somali Isas, and Djibouti authorities accuse Afars of Ethiopia that they are involved in attacks on Djibouti's territories and they back Djibouti Afars. So we're not sure about which group is behind this attack. Could be involvement of some Ethiopian group as well, as this area is right on Ethiopia-Djibouti border. Thank you for watching.